This is my 2019 Seadoo RXTX 300, and I'll be adding a 12-gallon auxiliary tank to my jet ski. Okay, we're going to look at just a basic setup of how the gas system works. It's built on ventilation. The Seadoo comes with a vent underneath the gas cap, and you all have to seal this off. I use marine grade epoxy that was able to seal off those holes. And then basically what you have your P-trap vent to keep the water out. That's going to go through your hull. And the way I have it set up, the vent's going to go into your auxiliary tank back here into the gas cap. You need to have a quick connect here so that you can actually take the gas cap off to fill it up. I also have a set of quick connects here, and if you notice from the ventilation side to the fuel side, I have them backwards. I have the male on one end, female on this end. I have the female on this end, male on this end, so that when you're not using your tank, you can take your hose and tie them into each other. All right, so that's why this little diagram here. You have your fuel pickup right here on your gas tank, and it's going to come into your fill hose. Now I didn't set up on the top, right below the cap is a plastic where your fill up housing is at. I didn't want to use that because eventually you'll crack that plastic pounding on the waves. You want to go inside the hose. You want to cut the hose and use a hose mender with a 3/8 barb. That's what I did, and you can see in the video exactly what I did. I had it welded. Now I have a T set up right here, and I have a T set up here so I could put a valve in. I put the valve in so that if I do hook up here, I take my tank off, I can open this valve up and I get a direct line vent vacuum from this vent back into the tank. It'll be a lot better. It still will vent if you have everything's empty, it'll still vent the main tank, but I believe that if you were not, like say you wanted to take off your quick connects and just have them right down back to the back of your jet ski to where they're just, you don't have this going across, you just have them down to where you put your holes in at, then you could do this, you could open this up and it would clear the path. Because see, all of my quick connects they won't leak, no fuel will come out in or out when they're disconnected. So until they're connected, they don't work. So that's the ones that I bought so I wouldn't spill no fuel or have any fuel leaking anywhere. This is the basic setup. Again, I didn't come up with this idea. A friend of mine, his mechanic did his jet ski, and this is the way he set it up. Now I don't know if you actually need this. I think this will come in handy at some point. But I mean, you could still make the circuit and still just tie this in. It would still do the same thing. I think all this does is basically gives a little bit shorter of a route, but that's how he had it set up. So I did mine the same as his. I keep the valve closed so that it will make the circuit, okay? But then when my tank's dry or if I take it off, then I want to open that valve up, okay? And that's basically it. After removing the seat, you will need to remove 13 bolts for the engine compartment cover. Then you will need to remove the ergo lock panels. You have 2 bolts and 2 plastic pull clips to take the side panels off. You'll see these two things I'm pointing at, they're just for inside strapping of lines and wires, so don't worry about them. You will need to remove all the bolts inside the storage bin around the top, and there's a couple of tricky ones, but you'll figure it out. You have 2 bolts to remove on the front panel, and the front panel slides forward. You'll need to remove this before you can pick up your hatch all the way. The speakers have to come off first before you can pull the last panel. You have 1 bolt at the top, and you have to use a long screwdriver. Here's an 8-inch screwdriver, and you have to pull it. There's a little hole at the bottom. You have to go in horizontally, go in, and then once you have it in, leave the screwdriver in place, and then you have to wiggle the speakers side to side while pulling back. It does not come up, it's got to go straight back to come off. And you'll see a picture of the clip here in just a minute. There it is. And as you can see, you have that little clip with the screwdriver slides on and pushes down to get the speaker off. Now that you have the speaker off, now you're able to get to the final bolt on that final panel. If you don't take the speaker off, you will break that bolt where the bolt goes at the clip. As you can see, there's the bolt right there. And then you have a pull tab that's close to the storage bin, or actually part of the storage bin. You have to pull down. Once you remove that bolt, you pull down on that pin, that clip, and then you slide the whole panel back. You'll see there's three little guides that are on there that you cannot pry up. It has to slide back to get off. I pilot drilled the initial hole, and I used a 1 3/8 spade bit for my Atwood P-trap. That's going to be the vent, and it will be covered by the Ergolock panel. This will help ensure no water gets to my P-trap. I didn't pull my bin all the way out because there's two vent lines at the bottom that are tie strapped. I didn't want to mess with it, but I pulled it up enough to where I can get to my hose, and I removed the fuel line and the fuel cap, the whole assembly. This is a 2-inch hose mender that I had a 3/8 weld barb to weld it on after it was drilled, of course, where it could. This is where your gas is going to flow through. This is where I sealed the vents on the vent cap, so that now it'll start pulling from my P-trap. And this is where I cut the line. I put my mender in. I made sure I marked the hose where I could get exact alignment, so that when I went back, it would go back exactly how the hose came out. I had to cut out just enough for that barb, the width of that barb of the hose. Right here, I glued in the tie strap holders up on the inside of the hull, so that once I ran my hoses, I could tie them back, get them out of the way, keep them off the motor. Definitely don't want them getting hot with the motor. Here's my inserts for my cable glands. This is where my hose is going to go through my hull. I used the MP16 cable glands, and I took and drilled the holes, and I used a marine grade epoxy to put them in. And I drilled the holes through the compartment cover as well, as you can see, to where, and I ended up using a grommet on that to make it nice and aesthetic looking. But started running my hoses. These are my T's. As you can see in the schematic in the earlier, we're going to have a valve going across right there. I've put my fuel holes back in. I've got it tied in. Everything is tightened up at this point, and I'm almost complete with my hose run. I got my vent side run. I now have my gas side run, and I'm almost completed. If you're going to be using a rack for your gas tank, you don't have to go through this area. You can go through the ski pole cover. That'd be the best option. That way you won't have to drill through anything. That's if you're using a rack. It wouldn't work the way I have it set up. Giving you a look again. This is the gas line. We're tied in. As you notice, it can shake. It'll take a pounding. Ain't nothing going to come loose at that point. That's the valve. The valve will stay in the shutoff position as you're wanting to pull from the auxiliary tank. It has some benefits to putting that valve in, but I don't think it's actually necessary. I think it'll still do the circuit without it, but I think that maybe it'll help with the ventilation on the big tank somewhat. And it has some benefits to it, but I don't believe that valve is necessary. As you can see, I tie strapped everything back, got it out the way. Now I'm ready to put the cover back on. This is what it looks like when the tank's going to be off. I can hook my two quick connects into each other. I put the last bit of fittings on. I put my hoses on. This is the parts list. I'm showing you exactly what I ordered. Most of it was off of Amazon. The total price for all my parts cost me about $400. I would say this, don't skimp on especially parts here, especially your clamps. Get the best clamps that you can. And like the P-trap is waterproof. Certain things I did, I made sure The quick connects were expensive because these don't leak when you disconnect them. They will not leak fuel. So don't go cheap on this, because consequences are that you get a leak, a bad leak, you're going to have some major problems. So you don't want to have that. An important note here, when you get your system all in line, you get it and you're ready to test it out, make sure you bring you a screwdriver or some tools with you, because when I took mine out, I just have one slight leak on one hose clamp, but you don't want to have no leaks inside the inside your hull. Another thing I'll always stress, some people want to vent on the inside of their jet skis, and that's not a good idea, because during the heat, your gas will expand and you have a chance that the gas can actually come out your vent, can push the gas out of your vent. So you don't want that. That's when you're going to have some type of explosion or something like that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Hope this was entertaining, and I'll talk to you later.